Hello, welcome back to the Game Blocks tutorials. This tutorial covers how to have characters say one-liners. So often called emotes. Many conditions in games we would want that to happen. So we'll take a look at the blocks that help characters say things. And these are standard Scratch blocks. They've been present even before BYOB. So it's just a simple block. You can type whatever you want to have a character say something. There are some additional blocks included in build your own blocks to have characters say things, mostly that talk to other sprites from within a single sprite. Those will be covered in the cutscene tutorial, which talks more about orchestrating multiple sprites together. This one we'll just talk about the logic of having a character say something. So let's just see. We'll have him say something like something like that, and so that's how the block works. You type something in and character will say it. So what I want to cover is basically starting out at least the three different structures you can use to have characters say one-liners when a character clicks on them, or when a player clicks on them in a game. So you see this a lot in RPGs. You walk around a town and everybody has a couple things to say about what's going on. So we can set something like that up with a different type of hat block here. This is kind of where you get a condition when the game starts or when a key is pressed. We can use one to find out what we've been clicked on. So it defaults to saying the name of the sprite you're working with, because it will only work for the current sprite once you drag it in this pane. So when I'm clicked, when sprite 3 is clicked, we can play this line. So now we start the game. And we'll click him. He says something. So you see the script lights up when I click. That lets me know the script is running. So that's fine. That's pretty much it. But what we want to do is have the character be able to say more than one thing. So in a game, typically a character will say something kind of brief and non-committal when you first click on them, and then they may start opening up and telling you more. So to do that, we'll actually construct some BYOB logic. And where it all begins is we need to have the game know how many things this character has said. And the way we do that is we create a variable for it. So a variable lets us store some information about the game. And so we'll just make a variable for that, for which line we're on for this character. So click on make a variable, and we'll just call it line. And instead of for all sprites, this is the option, the typical option. So for all sprites might be something like what level you're on or the hit points of the character. You would leave it available to all sprites to look at and take action based on. But we're just going to use that for this character. The only person in the world who cares how many lines this guy said is the character himself. So it's line for this sprite only, and there it is. It shows up below this bar here, so it lets me know it's only used by the sprite. By default, this box is checked, and that means it will show up here for debugging. Let's just go ahead and leave it since we're learning how this works. We'll see this number change as we talk to this character. So what we want to do, just like when you build a game and you want to put the characters all in place at the start, we want to put this variable at its starting point at the start of the game. So we'll grab another condition for when the game starts, and we want to set that value of the variable when the game first starts to 0. Let's see. So this, you can just get this first command just sets a variable value. So bring it out here, and let's see. Yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I think it'd be more logical for everybody if I just set it to 1. So we're on our first line. Setting our first line. Now, one tricky thing about variables, and I've been tripped up on this myself, you can drag them out and use them here, for instance. You can actually set a variable to a value of a variable, and that's quite useful. You can do a lot of things with them, like math and that sort of thing. But what you don't want to do is this. It looks like this is going to work. Set line to 2. It accepts it, but it actually doesn't work. It won't set the variable here. So always use this pull down. When you're setting a variable, use this pull down, find the variable you want, and then it'll work just fine. Okay, so there we are. I don't know how we got to 2. we've got our variable set up in the game when the game starts to play the first line. So now we can create some logic to play a line based on what a variable is. And so an easy way to do that is just a series of if statements. So again, the logic is in this control section up here. We'll just grab a bunch of these, and we want to ask ourselves, does line equal a certain value? We can stick it in there, but that's not really the logic we want. It's not going to contain a true-false value. What we want to know is if it's equal to a value. So there's a bunch of these diamond-shaped operators here, which we can plunk in there, and we just want the equals one. Here's where we can drop the line into some logic. So if the line, oh, what am I doing? I'm putting it in the wrong place. Sorry. If the line equals a value, how many times am I going to set this back to 1, huh? So if the line equals 1, then we will play this line. Now, it's going to do exactly what it did before, but I'll run it. See, we should have seen this flash, but I'm sure it's run. So we click him, this lights up, the line equals 1, so it plays the value. You can see up here that the variable line equals 1. It says sprite 3 before because it's only used by sprite 3. Okay, so that's somewhat interesting, but we want to have several of these. So to duplicate code, you can right click and do duplicate. You'll duplicate everything underneath your mouse that's connected. So to make 3 copies, we just want to set it out by itself, duplicate again, and there we go. We've already got ourselves some different lines, and we'll want to number them. So when the line is number 2, we'll play that one. The line's number 3, we'll play that one. We would want them to say something different. Let's see. I don't have time to think of anything clever, so okay. Using this rubber keyboard, which is not so good. And then last one will be some different states. Eventually, it's kind of get mad at you. Okay, so we're pretty much done with the sequence of lines, so we'll have to do one more thing, which is after it plays one line, we need to add a number to the line. So let's see here. We do that with the variables. First, we got to do a set, so we want to set our variable. Again, using the pull down. Set line to some math. We're going to put some math in here to add a number to it. Oh, and you know what? There's an easier way. Okay, you could do some math. You could do a plus, right? To set our value to what we're equal to now plus a value. But there is an easier way in this block system. We can just grab the change blocks. We can change ourselves by a certain number. So we're going to change line by 1. So that'll up the values. We can watch it change as we click on this character. Start and click on him once. He says something, and now you can see it's the numbers changed to 2. So we click on him again. He says something else. Click on him again. Says something else. Click on him again. Nothing happens. Okay, that could be fine, but usually in a game you want a reaction for everything the player does. So there's where you'd want to maybe add one more condition. You might want to go back here and have if. Now instead of equals, well, we can use a different math. Some of you may remember this math from school. Greater than, and same deal. Look, you can duplicate just a tiny piece of the script by clicking on it. So if line is greater than 3. We can play another one of these things. Let's at least make something different happen. We want to say the same thing. See, you could say the exact same thing or something else. Okay. There we go. We want to keep this change there, and so now it's got an infinite set of lines. Okay, I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. You can believe me. I hope you believe me. I'm doing it anyway. So the next thing we're going to do is make a character say random lines. So it's about the same structure as this. In fact, I'll show you a trick for copying scripts between sprites. We'll just drag this whole script. Wait a minute, we're not going to drag, we're going to first duplicate it and just drag it to another sprite. So we'll do this guy. Now he will have all this code. It makes things easier. And you know, another handy thing, we've made this variable line, which is a pretty common name, a local variable on this guy, and it shows up automatically as a local variable for this new character. So we can actually make it visible, and you'll see it's a separate variable for sprite 2. So we've got this whole structure set up, and it's ready to go for us. What we want to do, instead of adding one to the line every time, we can even get rid of this guy too. We're just going to pick a number randomly every time, and we can do that with a certain block up there. We do need to do a set first, though. So we want to set line to a random number every time. So first we got to do the set line to something, and we get a random number by using this handy block. We just pick random, and it tells you exactly which numbers it's going to pick random from, so from 1 to 3. And then this character will say something. He really should say something different, but in the interest of time, we'll just use the same lines. So click on him. He says a random line. That's the first one, but there. It played the first one twice, so that's pretty random. While you keep clicking on me, so it skipped the second one. So you can see it's picking a random number every time you click on it. So that's pretty good. And we often want to have a character who feels alive by doing something a little unexpected. If you have enough lines there, they can feel kind of like they're thinking a little bit. And for me, you really don't see this often in games these days. Even the newest games often just have 1 or 2 lines for a character in an RPG, and they relate directly to the mission at hand. You know, for my own taste, and this may be, you know, extra writing that just kind of never gets experienced by most players, I think you can create a pretty good simulation of a person by having, you know, a very simple intro line or two. You know, this might even be more than I would do for a lot of characters. Some characters might just be, huh? You know, just some quick little thing, or hello, or how's it going? And then, you know, let them gradually open up and have them go through a sequence of comments, and you can kind of create the sense of talking to somebody, or the person who's interested. You know, a player who really wants to dig for story can just kind of hear this person babble on about their life or something. You know, get some background on the mission itself, but also just some kind of, you know, odd pieces of texture to fill out the world, and then end up in some sort of random state like we just created here, where the character keeps saying things, but now they're obviously they're done talking to you and just are making kind of idle comments. And for me, that feels pretty good, and I just want to show how to create that structure with what we've got. So we're going to basically drag all the code we've done to this third sprite over here. So we'll grab the random stuff from this guy. We'll grab the sequential stuff from this guy. Let's see, and hopefully I'll see 2 scripts here. Okay. And we're going to stick them together. So let's see if we can get away with using the same variable. Sometimes I use a separate variable for the random stuff. So what we do is we'll keep the sequential stuff. I probably should have just kept the other script, but keep the sequential stuff. We'll need that starting script to set the line to 1, because we want to start out with the first line of dialogue. So there we go. When clicked, set the sprite, or set the, keep calling variables sprites, I don't know why. Set the line to 1, and we will continue having this change line here. So we'll change by line, change line by 1. And we'll keep this logic too. When the line's greater than 3, we want to do something, but instead of saying, this is where we'll start doing random stuff. So we'll talk to the character a while. The line's more than 3. We don't know how to say line 4 or 5, so we'll do something else. And this is where we are not going to set the line equal to a random number. We're going to set a different variable. So we'll just kind of replace that in a second, but we'll do this logic. we'll pick a random number and then say a line. So we do need another variable for that. So I'm going to go make a variable, call it R, and make it local. So very common name, but it'll only show up for the sprite. So I like keeping things short and simple. So now we have R, and that'll be the line we play. And we have to change this to make sure that we're setting the right variable. And all these guys have to change. So we don't want to be referencing line. We need to use R. Drag it out 3 times. And we need to change this dialog so you can see that it's actually random. We'll just do it quickly here. This is what you call placeholder content. During our course we do a kind of a placeholder project in the middle of the term, and it's also a concept you need to get used to using, because you often in a development situation don't have your assets but need to build out the structure of your game. So that's what we've done. We've built out the structure of this conversation. We should be able to watch it all unfold as we click on this fish. So it's going through the same lines, the same sequential lines. I don't think I've shown all of his variables, but so now he's done the 3rd line. Now we should start seeing random lines. There he is. He's in his random state. So as you see, we've created, what looks like at first glance a pretty complicated collection of code. If you just came to this fresh, you might scratch your head for a moment, but it's not so bad. It's one variable counting 1, 2, 3, playing a different line each time, and then this separate structure, kind of its own little world, picking a number and then playing a line. And in that way, you can create most structures of emotes seen in games. The advanced notes for this topic would be that you can play them in other conditions as well. So there's other ways you can trigger things in BYOB. We can wait for an event to happen. It's kind of the main one I'm thinking of. So basically, there might be a battle going on. There might be an AI state. Maybe the player uses a certain weapon. He throws a grenade or does some particular action that other characters would care about. So we could actually create a message that goes into the system. Grenade. I would use an exclamation point, but as a programmer I'm afraid to do any kind of special characters, but a important message. Grenade has been thrown. So this character might care about that, and it might play some lines. It might actually do exactly all this stuff. So you could have the same structure here, playing random lines. So grenade is thrown. Here's your random AI barks for that state. Fire in the hole, that's your typical lines. And well, I won't show it working, so to make it working I've got to actually wire up that logic. The way you would trigger it from somewhere else in the game is you have this broadcast command. So you can broadcast an event and receive the event anywhere in the game. This mechanism is used for many, many things. It's just a nice kind of catch-all way to create some interdependent logic. So you broadcast this, and there you go. He plays a random bark for it. And this, once again, you can bury deep inside your AI system or whatever kind of mess of code you have for your game logic, and characters can be waiting for that that event. And this is how you wire up characters in a game to the game structure itself to get them saying intelligent things and feeling like they're part of the world, and in that respect thinking, making them seem like they have brains. Okay, that concludes the emotes tutorial.